Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Grafton School Committee's regular meeting for February 26, 2019. Open the meeting at 7 p.m. Real quick, I have a chairperson's update. Due to missing our last meeting, we have a pretty full agenda to get through tonight. So I just want to give everyone a heads up. We've got a lot to cover. And just want to welcome everyone back from February vacation. Please keep in mind about the weather. This week it's supposed to be snowy. Hopefully, knock on wood, don't have to have Jay call a snow day. Next up, we have some comments from the public. I know that there's a set of parents here who would like to address the school committee, so if you'd like to come on up. And just please state your name.
My husband would like to hand out some material, like
Sure.
the takeaway.
Thank you.
My name is Christy Kilbazinski, and my husband is Andrew Kilbazinski. I'm here to represent the citizens of Grafton, Massachusetts that are petitioning the Grafton School Committee to update JEB 1 kindergarten entrance age requirement policy. This is not a request to change the entrance start date of September 1st. It is necessary to keep that date, as a moving target would not be beneficial to the school system or to the children of Grafton. Rather, it's a request to add an exemption clause to the current policy. We believe that children who turn 5 years of age between September 1st and December 31st and exhibit the cognitive and social ability to begin school to be considered for entrance into the public school system. Age is only one indicator of readiness, and we need to consider the child as a whole. This includes assessing academic and social skills as well as age. Methods to measure readiness can include preschool recommendation, parental recommendation, and formal assessment, as seen in Section A is the petition. I'm sorry if the copies didn't come out as well, but there are over 100 signatures from registered voters in Grafton. It's the responsibility of our community to provide an early educational experience that is successful for all children by allowing a child to be placed appropriately on their first day of school. An efficient and effective way for parents and educators to achieve this goal is by having a policy that permits children to enter kindergarten at the time that is most fitting to them individually. The Massachusetts Association of School Committees reference manual for JEB entrance age policy states that children should be permitted to enter school at the time that's most appropriate for them individually by allowing exemptions to be made at the school's discretion. You can see that in Section B. A sampling of 15 Massachusetts districts that agree with this, with placing kindergartners appropriately by allowing entrance considerations to be made, can also be found in Section B. The Department of Education states that our youngest learners deserve to start strong, and this is why the Every Student Succeeds Act was passed into federal law in December of 2015 and has implemented strategies for using Title II Part A funds. One of these strategies specifically includes using the funds for early entrance into kindergarten. I've reviewed the kindergarten registration requirement policies of the towns surveyed in January that was provided by the superintendent's office. All those policies can be found in Section D. After a broader review of the policies, it shows exceptions not listed in the original survey, and it shows Hudson's proposed change to their current policy based on the MSC policy manual recommendation. Thank you for your time, and I strongly urge the committee to place JEB 1 on the agenda for further review.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming in. Before we move on, does anyone have any questions?
But I have one, and thank you for this, very comprehensive.
You're welcome.
Are there any, and couldn't hear all that well, are there any outcomes assessments for children who are, where there are exceptions made?
So,
do we know any?
There's a fact sheet in the end of your, and there are numerous articles written in as a way to save paper. I didn't print out every article and study. I could provide you with those. But from what I've learned, that children who enter kindergarten and are challenged appropriately succeed overall, even if they're younger than their peers, because they meet that challenge, as opposed to a child who enters kindergarten above the readiness level. They tend to not be challenged, and as a result can become complacent in years to come because of that. Because it says that they will not catch up for many years, that they will not be challenged for many years. If they start out unchallenged, that challenge will not just all of a sudden appear in first grade either, or second grade or third grade. It takes many years. And by that point, some of those children have already become to the point where they have almost checked out.
Any other questions? All right. I want to thank you for coming in tonight. I know 7 p.m. on a school night is challenging for us parents. Thank you for giving us this information. Later on in the meeting, I will formally ask the committee if they would like to reconsider during future agenda planning, so you're more than welcome to sit and wait for that moment. We should hopefully get through some of the stuff in the next hour or so.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for coming in. Appreciate it.
advocacy.
Yes. Anyone else from the members of the public that would like to come and address the school committee tonight? All right. Moving on, with the committee's permission, I'd like to move the educational reports from Tracy at the end of general business and move up Ms. Parker's presentation. Are there any objections? Okay, come on down.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for having us here tonight to talk about our school improvement plan and then to present our educational report. I would like to start off by first acknowledging our members of our School Advisory Council. We have parents Mun Wong, Pam Hill, with me tonight, Robin Callahan, our community service member, Susan DaCosta, and teachers Megan Cosman, Julia Volter, and Kathy Thornton. We have continued to work hard to build upon last year's work and hope we can dazzle you with what we've done over the past year. We do consider this to be the last year of this plan, based on the work that we have done and the goals that we have accomplished. Our vision continues to match that of the district. Our vision drives our goals and our actions, and we continue to work on those goals. As you remember, our goals were to improve communication with families through the use of technology, to update and implement the new science standards at the K-1 level through high-quality instruction that's differentiated, informed by evidence and collaborative, and to support student and faculty wellness through established programs while investigating new means of support within and outside of the school system. Our plan was based upon the district strategic plan, teacher and parent input, and the work of our School Advisory Council. The PTO has also been very helpful and supportive as we've done our work. Our first goal, to improve communication with families and the community through the use of technology, inspired us to purchase the use of the Seesaw app last year. We presented that to you. It was so successful that we purchased it again this year. We have about 98% participation amongst all our staff this year. Some of the parent feedback that we received was why we chose to continue it. Our end goal for this was to increase communication. And what we've heard from parents and families is that they wanted more electronic communication, so we believe we've been able to do that. Through the Seesaw app, Remind, the emails that we send, it has allowed parents and families to feel they know what's going on in their child's day and to allow them to become part of the happenings of their school children. It's also been very immediate and allows those parents at home to talk about what happened during the student's day. Because as parents, you know, when you ask your kids, what did you do today? They say, I don't know, nothing. I went to school. This way they can say, I noticed that you had a wonderful science experiment in class today. Tell me about it. Or I noticed that you had a guest reader come in. What book did you read? So it really allows that conversation to take place. In fact, we've received so many kudos from Seesaw as well. They are asking me to please talk to the district and see if we could go district-wide. They are amazed at how many people are using it, how often the teachers are using it, and how many pieces of learning have been placed on there. As of the last week in December, we had over 16,000 pieces of information just this year. This has also been a personal goal for me, to challenge myself. For those of you who know me, I'm okay on this, but to actually get out there and get on Twitter, that was a goal, and I've done that. I'm very proud of myself for that. Using Seesaw, the email, Remind, and Boardmaker. I know for you guys it's old hat. For we old folks, a little bit harder.
I struggle
It's
with it.
also allowed, I'm much older than you. It's also allowed for our specialists to be able to participate and share. So we have speech teachers who are using this, and the art teacher, and the gym teacher. So it gives a different perspective to families as well. Some of the feedback that we received from parents on our survey are currently on the screen. Our end product, therefore, was to increase that communication, which we believe we have. It's school-wide and into the community by opening up the Twitter account. It allows more people to see what we're doing and to access what's going on in our school. And we have also encouraged our staff to expand their horizons, too. I had a teacher this year who, for the first time, has tried Seesaw and is so proud of herself for being able to do that. We also continue to offer websites and links, shared folders on Google and Boardmaker. On our webpage, we have listed a number of different websites that parents can access, whether it be from a reading website or something in the speech and language. It could be a new social emotional website that we're learning together about, but many different resources are there on the webpage. We have also found that by having the electronic communication, it has helped new families as they come to Grafton or enter our school to really get a good feel for our school community and what's going on. Our second goal was to update and implement the new science standards at the K-1 level. And our end goal was to update that curriculum to include in those standards STEAM and STEM activities. We were fortunate we had Jason Cody, who met with teachers, who included the CER portion where they need to, and I have to write it down because I always forget. And I don't have it. Claim, evidence, and reasoning. Took me a minute, sorry. I'm so used to the old scientific hypothesis and everything else. But this has allowed our teachers to have that opportunity to go in to add the different activities. It allowed us to buy the materials that were needed for them, and especially in the area of first grade, they tried it as a unit the first time they went out and put in the STEAM and STEM activities. They found they would much rather put them into each unit, so they've been able to do that. So we're very proud of the work that they have done in this area. And you can see the kids doing different things. This has gone across all grade levels. Pre-K is using STEAM and STEM in their activities, as well as for kindergarten and first grade. Our third goal was to support student and faculty wellness. As you know, this has become a district focus with our social emotional learning piece. We've always tried to do that at our level, and last year we told you about teachers who were doing workouts and different things with the staff. Our end goal is to have an increase in student and staff wellness and to complete that circle of social, emotional, and academic and have well-rounded students who have all their needs met as best we can. So we started where we were with responsive classroom and built upon that. And after last year's focus with the district and the admin team, we've really worked hard this year. We started last year with a pilot in music therapy with Jen Lentz. This year, we were able to write a target grant and have Jen come in for half a year. And Mr. Lundwall back there was gracious enough to match that grant. So we've been able, or will be able, to provide this music therapy program for the whole year. She's meeting with each class once a month, and the teachers have found a difference in the students. Some of the biggest differences would be the children who are very quiet and maybe not as verbal as their peers, and this music class tends to bring them out, and they're active, and they're singing, or they're humming along and having a great time doing it. You can see some of the different things that she does. In addition to the music therapy, we have used our PD days, we've used our staff meetings to have a book study on social emotional learning. We have done a number of different workshops and activities to get everyone on board in the same area. And our end product is that we are on our way as a school, in a school community. We've included the IAs and the BLAs, every staff member, custodians, whoever we can get to have the same common language, to know about growth mindset, and to really look at where the needs are and how we can support students. In addition, we are continuing our golden tickets. They were such a great addition to the school last year, and the children were so excited about it. They are starting to ask me now when they can do challenges. Isn't it time for a challenge, Mrs. Parker? We think we need a challenge. So they have been earning the golden tickets for above and beyond, random acts of kindness, doing the right thing without being asked, going out of their way to help someone. And every morning we call them down, and they are so proud to come down with those golden tickets and to show that they have made good choices. When I have lunch with the students, which is one of the prizes that they can win, especially first grade, I'll say, what do you think about golden tickets? Should we keep golden tickets? Oh, yes, Mrs. Parker, we should keep them. They're great for the kids, and it helps us to do the right thing. So they're recognizing that they themselves are doing a good job and would like to continue. Again, social emotional learning, we have, again, used our PD days, we believe, very wisely, and had a number of activities for staff. Our staff meetings include working on the APL standards, which I had spoken about earlier this year, as well as looking at that book study. We've had classroom implementation, which you'll hear about tonight. We have common language that has been spoken about and really practiced in the school, and a common understanding. So some of the work that we've done. A lot of discussion has gone on, a lot of collaboration, decision-making as far as where we'd like to go next year with this, and there have been many aha moments among everyone, where we'll talk about something and go, oh, that makes so much sense, or I didn't realize that that's where that came in. So it's been a wonderful learning opportunity for all of us as a learning community. Do you have any questions?
Yep, thank you. Thank you so much for coming. It's always wonderful to see you and
Always
to hear
great to
what's
be
going
here.
on at South Grafton Elementary School. I wanted to hear a little bit more about the music therapy program. So great job on the grant. I tried for that grant several times when I was head of North's PTG and never got it. So I am impressed. It's a one-year grant, I'm
It's a one-year grant.
assuming.
Correct.
So have you submitted it for budget next year? Have you thought that far yet?
We haven't gone that far yet. However, what I did last year at the end of the couple of times that we had was
Yeah.
put out a survey to the teachers, to the people who work in the classroom, speech and language teachers. How did they feel it went? Was it worth our money? Was it worth the time and effort of having somebody come in? So I will do that again next year, or at the end of this year,
Yeah.
and then we'll go out and seek grants again.
So does Mrs. Lentz, does she partner with Mrs. Kasperitas at all? Is it completely?
They have met
Separate?
and discussed it, but it is separate. Preschool doesn't get music.
Yeah.
So to have the music therapy program come in has been beneficial for them. Is it a program we would like to grow? Absolutely. Is it something we would like to share district-wide? Absolutely. If you'd like, we can have Jen come in at a later meeting for you and explain what she does.
I would.
And she would love to do that.
Yeah,
She is
I'm
so
sure.
proud of the
Yeah.
work that she does, and she's board certified.
Yeah.
She knows what she's doing, and we think that it's made a huge difference.
Oh, that's great. I love that. I remember you talking about it last year. I'm really glad to hear that it has gone well and it's made a difference.
It
I'd love
has.
To hear more about it.
Yeah, because last year it wasn't whole school, right?
It was still only preschool, and we only had a couple of sessions that we were able to do, through the grace of the PTO, funding it for us and saying, yes, let's try this out and see how it goes.
Oh, that's great. Glad to see it expand.
Doreen, do you have any budget figures for us that you can share about what it would take to sustain a program into our regular budget, just for us to know?
This year, just for preschool, for all the classes to have music therapy once a month was $2,000.
Okay.
So it's not big money. However, to build that across district, across grade levels would, of course, be much more. But at least starting it there and getting the children involved in it has been helpful,
$2,000 for the whole program, for the whole year, once a month?
yes.
Okay,
But that was just preschool.
That was just preschool.
just preschool,
Mhm.
okay, all right. And obviously, there would be some other budget implications if you were to expand it to kindergarten and first
Correct.
grade and roll that out.
It would just double and triple as we go up, because the same number of classes. It was 6 preschool classes, 6 kindergarten, 6 first. So it'd be 6,000 for the whole school to do it once a month.
Okay. And the other question I have for you is, I was really happy to hear about the Seesaw success. Congratulations on taking a
you.
chance and really seeing the benefit. And I think it sounds like you may have one holdout for probably one specific reason. You got, what, almost 100% of the staff
We've been working on it.
using it. That's
Keep working on
fantastic.
it.
In less than a year, just short of making something mandatory.
Mm-hmm.
But that's fantastic to hear. Right now, you have that implemented at the South Grafton Elementary School, but you feel that this might be something worthwhile for the whole district?
I believe North has used it
Yeah.
off and on. I'm
Oh,
not
yeah.
sure if they
They've used it
have.
for years,
Mhm.
both schools.
It's the same thing, but the parents have just found it to be such a useful tool.
Okay.
It's a way of communication. It allows you to email or text back and forth,
Mhm.
so that if you had a specific question about something that happened, you can do that. Many of the teachers send out reminders, Friday's Dr. Seuss Day, don't forget, wear red and white, or do things. So I think it's very quick and easy for the teachers to do, and quick and easy for the parents to receive and respond back.
That's great.
Even homework. My first grader's teacher has sent homework via Seesaw so that we could have it right there and not have to deal with the paper as well. But she has 100% participation in the class, so.
Excellent. That's great to hear. All right. Thank you for sharing that.
You're very
Appreciate it.
welcome, my pleasure.
And on the Seesaw, I'm a huge fan, and I feel like in the parent role, nothing was more powerful than when one of my sons was in kindergarten and sharing out a video of the work, of the group work, and being able to get that. And I got it in the middle of the day and kind of know, and just to your point of being able to follow up. So I feel like there's so many layers with that tool to keep expanding it. So when people just start, they may be doing the agenda. So I have one teacher who sends the agenda every day. It's helpful because I have the homework, I know what's going on, but to actually have the videos. But when they start so young too, they're building their portfolio of their learning and growth that they can talk about and have an authentic audience. So all the layers of it, I just love it. So I'm really, really pleased to hear that you're using it across the board. That's really exciting that it grew so fast. I had one question about, you mentioned responsive classroom. I know we've used that for a really long time. Is that something that we have to keep getting PD and renewal with PD for that? Or
Mrs. Kalo has done a wonderful job of making sure our teachers are always trained and ready to go and have had the training that they need. So,
is
yes,
it like a
it's
one-shot kind of training, or do you need to keep getting refreshers? It's just more.
the one-time training
Yeah.
as you go through RC1 and RC2, but
Okay.
as we get new teachers in, they're the ones that need to be trained. So
Yeah.
once they're trained, they're trained.
Yeah.
And we can use it and build upon it, and we found a really great correlation and connection with the social emotional learning that we're doing and how well it fits together and building that community piece first and getting to know our students and really making a bond with them so that we know when something's off or if they need support in other areas. So it's been a great tool, philosophy, however you'd like to put it, where the social curriculum is as important as the academic in building that whole child. So it's been wonderful.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and it has to be, right? I mean, it can no longer just be,
You have to do the whole,
Knowing
yes, you
your,
have to support the
know,
whole child.
yeah.
You do.
and it's no more than so important in the early education.
And I think even as you go up, I think
Yeah.
it's equally as
Oh,
important
yeah,
as they
yeah,
get
yeah.
older to know that they're important.
even as a
But
grown-up.
people see them, yes,
It's important.
absolutely.
It is. You're important, Tori.
Well, thank
Anya,
you, so as
Tyler,
are
do
you.
you have anything you want to ask? Okay. Thank you.
I love the musical therapy. That sounds great. Wish I could have done that, but
Thank you.
All right, next.
Great to see you. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you both so much for coming.
Our education report this evening is on social emotional learning. I know we touched on it briefly at our last meeting. I would like to call up Sarah Thompson and Kelly Sweeney to assist at this time. When we last met, we had talked about what was going on in our professional development days and our work with social emotional learning and what we were doing. I had told you that we had put together some really basics about social emotional learning so that everybody had the common idea of where we were going and what we were doing. By our last PD day, we had teachers who were ready to present to their peers of what they're doing in classrooms or their work in the school to really promote social emotional learning. So Sarah presented on mindfulness. It was set up that every adult that was there that day rotated through a number of stations, so everybody got to see this. So Sarah?
Hi, Sarah, how are you?
So I spoke to staff at South Grafton Elementary School about what I do with my students in the small group reading. Not only is the skills that they work on with me important, but it's also their self-confidence. Think back to when you were young and you were learning how to read. Was it something enjoyable? Was it something that, you had to do? Or, was it like, you have to learn how to read and then it didn't become enjoyable? My goal is for students not only obviously to learn the skills, but also to build up that self-confidence and feel good about themselves. So I presented some different things that I work on. We talk about, I can't read chapter books yet. Certain skills are hard, but I'm going to work on them. I will be able to use them. I talk to students about the mantra as children see themselves as readers. We will continually say at the beginning of a session, I am a reader. And it builds up that self-confidence because I want them to feel good about themselves and know that they can read whenever and whatever they want to. I talk to teachers about how I have the students write down or tell me 3 good things that they are good at in reading. For example, finding smaller parts in words, students will tell me using eagle eye, using stretchy snake. I also talk about my own examples of things that were a struggle for me as a reader or as a student when I was younger, and it makes them feel good, like, oh, I can do this. I talk to staff about being a mirror when you meet with students and really focusing on the good that the reader is doing and building up their self-confidence. When teachers are meeting with students, they can say, I noticed you did this, or first you use this strategy and then you use this strategy. It makes them feel good about themselves, like, oh, I could do that. And then they can continue to work on those strategies. I also handed out a packet of activities for teachers to work on, questions, tickets out that they can ask, like, what did you feel good about today? You struggled with this, but how did you feel by the end? We talked about fixed mindset and growth mindset. How can we make students take those fixed mindsets and turn them into growth mindsets? So then I had teachers work together and talk about what was a fixed mindset and what was a growth mindset. And, all the teachers were very, excited with some of the activities that I handed out, and there was like the packet that they could use in the classroom and discussions that they could have when they were meeting with their students during their conferences, during that small group and individual time.
Thank you, Sarah. We also had Mrs. Vogel, who presented to the staff brag tags or celebration tags or whatever you'd like to call them. But it is a program that she had found online through Teachers Pay Teachers, and she liked what it had to say for students. Kind of built upon what we do with the golden tickets when we notice them doing something well. these brag tags come in all sorts of things. So I show perseverance. I have a growth mindset. I did my best work. So as she started the program, she really wanted to teach the students what those words meant. What does perseverance look like? What is it in the classroom? How can I tell when you are persevering at something? How do I know when you've had to really step back and think about it and then try something new that was really hard for you? So she's really built this program into her classroom, as well as many of the other first grade teachers who call them different things. For Mrs. Vogels, she has little keychains that as the students earn them, they add them to their little keychain. Other classrooms have necklaces, and the kids, when they earn them, put it on their necklace. And they get to say, oh, I never give up. Mistakes help me to grow. I have grit, and that was a word she needed to teach them what it meant. And I can self-reflect. So just different ways of also supporting students with their growth mindset, with what they're going through in class, to help them to continue to give it a try, and just a different way of recognizing how kids are doing a great job. Yes, you might have gotten it wrong. That's okay. Did you give up? No, you persevered. You kept trying and trying, and trying different methods of trying to figure out the problem until you finally got it. So I think the students are walking away feeling better about themselves, and yeah, I might not have been able to do it today, but maybe tomorrow, or at least I didn't give up, or I had a setback today, but I bounced back. So really changing that thinking of it wasn't a total bad day. Yeah, I had a little blip. We moved on. So I know that she has shared this with everyone on staff who liked it and have gone on to include it in their classroom as well. We also had Angela Mercure and Lori Jankowski who presented on common language. And some of the things that they talked about, and they did theirs through a wonderful Jeopardy game, so they really included technology and people had fun. But basically it was to go over what are the different things that we are teaching students in the common language. So whole body listening, thinking with your eyes, unexpected and expected behaviors, brain in a group, body in a group, so that people can tell by looking at you, are you thinking about it? Is your body ready for learning? Thought and speech bubbles, which one goes in what? Should we have that as a thought bubble, or should we be saying that in our speech bubble? Really trying to teach the kids when it's okay that you maybe should say that, or maybe we should keep that in our thought bubble today. What's a big problem and a little problem, and who do we get to help us solve that? Talking about feelings and really identifying feelings and what they mean, and how they can really change your day. Flexible and stuck thinking, and group plans. You know, maybe things aren't going well at recess, but we can create a group plan and work on that and go out and have a great recess. So by teaching that common language to all the staff, including our IAs and BLAs, has been wonderful. We're all starting to use the same terminology and the same language. The kids, when we say these words, they know what whole body listening is. They'll tell you, oh yeah, I need to look at you, I need to have my ears and everything ready. So it's been a great lesson for everyone to learn as well. And then we have Mrs. Sweeney, who did work on.
So what I did was I took the 5 competencies of social emotional learning, and I divided them up, and I took materials that I have in my office that I've used in different aspects, whether it's in small groups with kids, whether it's in whole classroom lessons, whether it's in one-to-one sessions. And I put them out and kind of sorted them through the 5 competencies. And then I asked people to think about their experiences in their teaching, whether it's a skill that they have, or a strategy that they use with kids that fosters development in this area, or if it's a direct teaching method, like most of my materials are direct teaching methods of social awareness or self-awareness. So we started there, and teachers came in and they added on. And then we had another area that was for general. If this is an overarching thing that might touch many of these areas. What I thought this was helpful was for the diverse crowd that we have in the school. We had IAs there, BLAs, we had specialists there. So everybody is bringing to the table their own training, their own experience, but also having been in the school for a while, they have the understanding of some of the language or some of the strategies that might be used in one classroom, but different in another. So they got to see what is going on across grades. They got to see and talk about what works for your classroom. Oh, maybe I want to try that in my classroom. And I thought that was a nice way of saying, like, we're not reinventing the wheel here, but we're taking a look at these things. We're seeing what we have, what we want to do, and what the outcomes of this was really that we're trying to gather ideas to have a shared drive for all teachers in the school to access, say, I want to really know how to foster this skill. Or I really need a direct teaching lesson on conflict resolution. So where can I go to get that? We do a lot of this day to day, but to have maybe a more organized system of sharing that is what we were hoping for. I also, for outcomes, I got many requests. I asked the teachers to fill out a ticket to leave that asked, could I record them doing one of these things? Could I come in and record it for some video modeling? Is it an activity that you're doing that's fostering self-awareness, or is it something that you're doing that's really supporting growth mindset? So I got some responses that were positive, that yes, please come in and video this for me and share it out. Or some people that had materials they wanted to add to the drive. I've had other requests for some of the materials that I put out. Maybe they hadn't seen it in their classroom, so they'd like to use different things. For instance, when you think about mindfulness or resetting, a lot of our teachers will do Go Noodle has yoga and different things like that, or they'll do some quiet time after lunch to have the kids kind of reset themselves after those busy times and get back for learning. I pulled out a little thing that's mindful minutes, and it's all minute activities that are different that you could do that are similar to those. So there was interest in that. So it was gathering the information, seeing what we have in place and what we're doing. The other aspect is we do a lot of the language that we were talking is from the social thinking curriculum. So that is done periodically in the classrooms. We've had years where we've been in every classroom, and we have years that we aren't just in classrooms of need and doing more pull out with maybe at-risk kids or kids that maybe identify as having more needs. But the teachers have really liked those lessons and have asked, hey, I know you're not able to come in today, but can I do that lesson? So what we got from that conversation was how to support the direct teaching of some of these skills in an organized fashion, easier way for teachers. So they loved having the printout of the language. I use a program for self-management and self-regulation called the Zones of Regulation. Some teachers were able to incorporate that into their classrooms this year. Others, I do it in a small group kind of fashion. So it was just nice to see the whole school have the conversation and understand that this is what we have available, but what are you doing, and how can we tailor that for kindergarten versus preschool? So it was really nice, and we have some ideas for what we need to do to go forward. And I think that, everyone participated and they did walk around and really look at the things and add in their own. So I thought that was nice.
We also did an activity on Who Do You Know? And what Kelly had put together was a list of every single student's name in our school. With a, do we know them by name? Do we know them by face? Do we know them by family? How do we know these students? And we had every staff member go through and put a check mark whether they knew who the student was by name, by face, by different ways. And we're going to take these sheets and really use them to identify what are the areas that we'll need to look at next year. Who are those students that we didn't recognize? How come we didn't recognize them? Is there a missing piece of what we're doing? And this was one of the biggest aha moments that we've had so far, as people went through and went, oh, look, this one here doesn't have as many check marks. How come? What can we do about it? So all of this work that we have done this year will build upon next year and really determine where we're going with our social emotional learning. As you can see, many, many check marks and different ways that we knew them. Do you have any questions for us?
I'll say I love the Who Do You Know? I think that's a great way to kind of give you an idea of, you don't recognize there's gaps until it's something put out like
Right.
that. Question more for maybe Tracy is, I like how you had the shared drive. Do we have something that's like district-wide for like a shared, for
I don't believe
SEL
we have
things?
something district-wide. I think it's more building-based at this point.
Okay, or even like maybe South Grafton, North Grafton could have like a shared, I don't know what.
We're just in those building stages. We know that's what we want to do, and we want to pull in the resources we have and all the social emotional
Yeah.
learning books that we can use in class and really start to build that so that
No,
It's only in the infant stages, but we are looking to build upon that, and yes, we will share it, absolutely.
it's a great idea.
Yeah, I know that first grade, and you have done some work on creating a book list for first grade for different social emotional skills.
Right.
So first grade has that already,
Yeah.
and
There's
we're
like
just hoping to
mentor
expand it.
texts.
That they do during read alouds. When I had attended the Leslie conference back in October, read alouds was a huge area of topic, and using those mentor texts to really get across the areas of social emotional learning.
I loved the activity of the check marks, and it was a high school, but, I think it was Monomoy High School, and what they did the following year is they, had a whole wall of all the students on the wall, and I don't know if it was like 571 students, I don't know if you've heard of this, but they're like 571, like that, whatever that number was the number, and so then that was the school's goal to make sure they knew every student really well, so they highlighted right when you came in, they were all recognized the students just from the start and had the info, their own info about it, so you'd be up there. I mean, they did lots of other things, but that like picking the number of the students and making sure that everyone counts, it was something along the lines. But it was Monomoy High School, so you could, look that up, but it just reminded me. And so they did that kind of activity first. But I love that you did that. And I love the alignment of the resources to the competencies. I think that's one area for all of us in different districts, like for growth and to be able to learn and see how to do that. And I'm a huge fan. Anytime anyone says zones of regulation, I get all excited because I saw one school that was actually everyone started using it. That you have the pockets that use it, but when the whole school used it, it transformed that school in that language of everyone talking in the hallway, and you could just use it across the board. So it can be really powerful as a tool to, especially at the age that you have. So I love that you're doing all awesome things, and really glad I get to sit here and be fortunate enough to listen to it. So thank you for all your hard work.
Any other questions?
I don't have a question. I can't say it better than Maureen just did, but I love all of this, especially just teaching the growth mindset so early. I mean, we know it's important all the way, but once you start thinking that way, it's so much easier than having to learn it later on when you hit if school's super easy and then you get to middle school and something's suddenly a challenge and you have to change your fixed mindset. Even as an adult, I realize I have to change my fixed mindset that I've been carrying with me since kindergarten. And I love the 3 good things,
Thank you.
That's just such a nice thing. We always say, it takes, I think, even 5 things to make up for that one thing you think about yourself. So it's such a great way, and I wish we had some brag tags up here at the school committee, as well as the thought bubble.
I'll get working
Something
on that.
I really need to work on, what I think versus what I say. So we can all continue to grow. But I love hearing all of this, and it's so important. We've been talking about social emotional learning for so long, and throwing it out there, and how it's really no longer like, oh, social emotional, it's an and. It's just, this is part of our curriculum. It's part of who we are now. It's part of, as people, not even just students, how we have to be better. And I'm so grateful that education has moved forward enough to recognize this, and that we have educators like you doing the work that you're doing. And thank you so much.
I could really spend another 5 minutes and rehash everything that they all said, and I completely agree with them. I want to thank you for coming in tonight and presenting. Sarah Kelly, thank you very much for taking your time out of your evening. And as you, Doreen, thank you very much
It's our
for that
pleasure. Thank
presentation.
you.
Thank you.
Great job, thank you.
You would do?
Okay, so next up, we have special education update. Mr. Lundwall is here, special education director. How are you, Arnold?
Great. How you doing?
put it in as a PowerPoint or?
Just that right there. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. Jay just grabbed a few handouts for you because one of the slides that we have here, there are a couple of links that if I projected it up here, it just really wouldn't. They're kind of small. Unfortunately, there's a lot of information there. I wanted you to have it. You might need a magnifying glass for one of them, unfortunately.
Just have to do this.
That's
Oh
why
my
I've got.
God.
I do apologize. I did try to blow it up. It really didn't work out so well. That being said, I wanted to take a few moments this evening to talk with you about the special education department and some of the reading interventions and the work that we're doing around that to monitor what we're doing and move our programming forward. First of all, I have to give special thanks to Lisa Rice, who I've worked with over the past couple of years, really, but very closely this year in identifying what our reading interventions are in special education, modeling a lot of the work that she and Tracy Kalo have done prior to this year with her reading department, and looking at ways of improving what we're doing and identifying the very good work that we're doing, and again, looking at different pockets. That being said, we started off this school year with a literacy survey that was sent out to the special educators from K to 6 and asked a number of questions. What's working in literacy? What's not working? And what can be done to improve those areas? That gave us some very good information, and in particular, they were able to identify very specific programs that they knew were being promoted in the district to help students who struggle to read learn to read. And they also identified that there's a lot of time constraints in terms of getting this work done with students during the school day. But there was also very clearly a lack of understanding outside of the grade level or grade levels that special educators work in, what was going on in the other grade levels, or what's going on K to 6 as a range. And so providing them with time and an understanding of what we do have and what we feel are pockets seemed to be one of the big drivers here. The other thing that came out was providing special educators with a way to identify where students are having difficulties and matching programs for them to provide as intervention. So those were the big drivers that we had. So looking at the results of the survey, we decided that we would like to put together a committee, voluntary based, and have it after school, maybe an hour, hour and a half, once a month. And we started off in December with that meeting. And we had 8 people who showed up for it, which was great. But looking at the department and looking at the potential numbers, we had a potential of 32 people. So we sat down, we worked on it for about an hour, hour and a half. Some people had to leave to go get their kids. It was after school. Realized very quickly that there were some limits here, and we weren't getting the entire audience. We weren't getting the entire voice. And we felt that instead of doing a committee after school on people's own time, that why don't we go with a model that certainly has worked in this district, and Tracy has done a lot of work over the years, and pulling people together during the school day with larger swaths of time. With that said, we came up with some end outcomes during that first meeting and knew very quickly that we were going to have to move towards working with the entire department as a whole. But those end outcomes for this school year are these 3 main points. First is that we want to identify the interventions or the programming that we have and the resources that we have and document those so they are easily accessible to the entire department. Then we wanted to create a criteria document for each intervention, matching intervention with student needs, or if you want to call it symptomology of reading difficulties. And then the final area or outcome for this school year is to create a decision tree, or maybe a testing decision tree, or a document. Who gets what for testing? Who gets what for intervention? And what do we have for resources? And having a broader understanding of what's out there. So moving from the committee model to a workshop model, we decided that we would aim for monthly release time, 3 hours in duration each time we sit down together, again, as I mentioned before, having a larger participant pool where we would ask all the special educators from grades K to 6 to sit down and work together. That's where Lisa and I facilitate the discussion and work with the staff to identify, like I said before, interventions, gaps, training needs that we might have, as well as material needs. Our first meeting was on January 9th. We had another meeting last month on the 6th of February, and our next meeting is scheduled for the end of March. And this is the slide that I was talking about earlier, where our special educators sat down and did a lot of hard work. And the first link up here talks about the special education reading intervention overview. That is the really small print there, and it identifies in the district, I'm going to put my cheaters on here. It identifies in the district some of the different programs that we have. And just to give you a little backdrop, over the past 3 or 4 years, I've been sending more and more of our special educators to programs and trainings and certifications for interventions such as Wilson reading, such as Linda Mood Bell, visualizing and verbalizing, and quickly realized that while we were trying to track that information, it felt a little bit haphazard, and that was another driver for going to the workshop model and identifying who are the experts in our special education department, where do we have those gaps, who wants to become trained in Wilson Reading, for example, or Linda Mood Bell, or Edmark, or other types of programs. So this list right here does talk about the different types of programs that we currently have and do use in district, and it gives an idea of a summary of the program, the skill focus areas, and the methods that might be embedded within those programs. So the teachers sat down, worked on this together, and have this now as a resource at their fingertips. Any questions?
Yeah. Thanks, Arnold.
Sure.
Sorry to jump in. Can you just talk through that again? So it's a resource, they're not trained,
We do have a list of
Missed
people who
that.
are trained and who are in progress
Yeah.
or in process. For example, for the Wilson Reading System here, I don't have that on this link here for you. That is certainly a document that I do have, that I work with Lisa Rice on, and certainly with Tracy Kalo, so that we're identifying who wants those trainings or who's in process.
Okay.
This is an overview of the actual programs.
So then they take a look at the program that they're interested in, and then they get trained?
They could request that. That is going to be one of the outcomes where we talk about what gaps might be there. This list right here just identifies what Wilson does, for example, does try to target, what LIPS out of Linda Mood Bell tries to target, what's the Seeing Stars program. So if you look across the top, it identifies the different programs, and then it talks about a summary of the program itself. Whereas not every special educator might be well versed in these,
Okay.
but they might have heard of them.
Okay.
So this gives that overview.
Okay, so it's like an overview of resources that are out there.
Yes.
for
That is
them.
correct.
Okay, thank you.
And so in the process, I think you alluded to this, you've identified some of the areas and gaps where maybe we don't have some who are trained in Wilson in this area, but we're, might be trending where we need those supports, and then you're again going to identify who's been trained, who isn't, and kind of, you have that overview as well.
That's right.
And like a document now that kind of shows what everyone can do.
Correct, with an end goal of
Right.
hopefully from K to 6, having someone at each of those grade levels who could provide these services to students, and slowly really getting to that end goal. Because it's time consuming, it's costly, and there's a lot of investment that's involved.
When they get trained in something like Wilson, is it something they have to maintain and go back for new trainings? I know it's really intensive up front. Is it something that they have to get retrained after a while for some of these?
Not necessarily retrained. It's not like a recertification for a teaching license. Once you're certified as, let's say, a level 1 Wilson
Yeah.
instructor, you have that.
Okay.
You can move on to Wilson Level 2. For example, Lisa Rice and Leah Towler are 2 educators in this district who are currently going through that process of getting the Level 2 training. It takes about a year at minimum to get through the training. And there's a lot of online work, there's a lot of face-to-face work with Wilson instructors, and then having a practicum student as well to work on. So it is quite intensive. And there's, like I said before, a lot of commitment involved in it. So the next link that I have here talks about the special education reading interventions from K to 6, looking at phonological skills. And what it does is it takes a look at phonological awareness, and it breaks phonological awareness down into its 5 component parts at the top. So you have phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, comprehension, and vocabulary. And we weren't entirely sure when we started this work, meaning the special educators, that this would be filled in. We really were concerned that we were going to have gaps in certain areas. But if you look at this document, it's about a little over 2 pages in length. Each of these areas, at each of the grade levels, certainly has some level of intervention that is available to us. Does that mean that everyone's trained thoroughly in each of these areas? No. And that's one of the end goals that we have, is to really identify where those smaller pockets are. But this information really was satisfying to get, because now, again, we can say, this is at your grade level. You may not have it, but you might have a peer who can work with you on some of these things, or work with students. And that's where scheduling and working with the principals and the team chairs and identifying where those pockets are, or where those areas of needs are, can be helpful in programming for students with IEPs.
So Arnold,
Yes.
this one only goes up to grade 6. Is there anything that goes beyond grade 6 that you have?
We haven't started any work on that. However, what we do have at the middle and high school, and it's a little bit of a different model, where we have Leah Towler. She's a reading specialist. That is exactly what she does do. She's a reading specialist for the special education department, and she does work with those students. Typically, what happens is students who advance through the Wilson program, for example, graduate beyond level 1. When they exit level 1, many, if not all of those students, are able to lift words off the page. It might not be as fluent as you would like, or they might have gaps in comprehension. So she might then shift into working with students on a different program, and it's listed in here, called Just Words, where it does work on those pieces. For a smaller segment of students, they might need to receive Wilson levels 7 through 12, which is that level 2 certification. And as I mentioned before, Leah Towler is in process of getting that certification done.
What's your time frame on getting that certification?
For her, she has just started this year. So again, it depends not only on doing some of the coursework and the online work, but working with a practicum student and watching that progress. For example, Wilson is a program where it is evidence-based and validated. So we know that intervening with students does have results. And so you have to make sure that the student progresses through the different levels. And so she would work with a practicum supervisor through Wilson out of Oxford, Mass, and give feedback as to the student's progress, or if they need to make changes. So it isn't just a set time, because it is dependent on a practicum student's progress through that.
Okay. Any questions? Okay.
Ideally, by the end of this year, but we'll see how that goes.
Oh, okay, great, thank you.
So again, those 2 documents were the end result of our first workshop meeting in January. In February, we had another meeting where we took a look at a number of different areas. We wanted to, refine our understanding and recap our understanding of interventions versus resources, because a resource such as dipsticking with leveled readers, or A to Z reading, or DRA, sure, that gets a student's reading level. You can also work with DIBELS to identify their fluency, but that's a resource versus an intervention. So we wanted to kind of talk through that, because those types of things did come up. We also want to begin our diagnostic work in talking about how different students present, and then what programs may match towards those students. And we also wanted to define what specialized instruction is, because it can be very confusing. For example, the reading department may use techniques that are very similar to special education instruction, and it might look very similar, but how does that look different? How do we define that? When we sit down and say we're providing specialized instruction, sure, that's being provided by a person with a special education license or degree, but really, what does that look like? How do you define that? So we really needed to drill into that and make sure that we all are on the same page there. Then our teachers worked on student profiles. And as you can see here, there are 5 different profiles. Does it encompass every profile of learner? No. But it gives us a pretty large bandwidth of types of learners who come to the table who need reading instruction. And we did just start digging into that here. When we get together in March, we're going to work really hard at those decision trees and those flowcharts, which are in process right now. With that said, I think this poster here, each grade level broke out and kind of brainstormed and put some ideas down on paper as to what their idea of specially designed instruction is. And we sat down and talked about it. This one encompasses a lot of exactly what specialized instruction is for students, what it is that a special educator brings to the table. It's got to be creative. Can be multisensory. There's a lot of repetition, but it's not just repetition. It's about spiraling and finding the student where they're at. It's very specifically designed for the student. It has to be based on their strengths and their areas of weakness, of course. And, of course, it can cross curricula for students. And so we have to be very adept, not at just modifying curriculum, but meeting students where they're at depending on what content area. They might have excellent strength in science, but might have difficulty with reading. So how do you work with that? I think the big aha moment that we had here was coming together as a department, people identifying, yes, we really need to be very good at meeting students where their needs are and what their instructional level is at. And that is always a challenge, but looking at specifically through the lens of literacy and reading instruction, I think we're going to get very close to, if not great at, perfecting how we're kind of diagnosing where the problems are and applying those different interventions, not only as pull-out instruction, but also in our co-teaching models as well. And of course, we looped back after we did our brainstorming and said, okay, how do the feds look at this? And we threw up the definition from the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, and certainly we hit on many of those points here. And of course, this gets awfully technical, talking about addressing the unique needs of a child, ensuring their access to the general education, and that talks about the least restrictive environment. And we have to also be very mindful of that and keeping our special education students as close to the curriculum and to their non-disabled peers as possible. As I mentioned before, some of our next steps include reviewing and revising our decision trees for interventions, because we've just begun the work on that. We want to also take a look at how we're collecting data. Certainly we provide IEP progress reports for our students on a quarterly basis or based on when students receive their report cards. But we want to dive into this a little bit closer and a bit more frequently. And I think consensus has it that we want to identify how we're taking data on each of those different programs and perhaps streamlining that and sharing out ideas with each other about how we're doing that and making sure that everyone, again, has access to those templates. Can't say enough thanks for the people who participated in this, not only the teachers, but the building administrators who provided release time for these educators to come together. I'm looking forward to sitting down with them again at the end of March, and then once or twice again for the remainder of the year.
Any questions? Dan, thanks for that update and that report. We anticipate coming in and reporting on the outcomes on this later on. Would that be next year, you think, or?
Next year, as well as next steps, because I don't think it stops at reading.
Oh, good. Okay.
I see this as something that isn't a one-year project. It's not a one and done. We need to take a look at this next year and make sure that we're generalizing not only across our staff, but new staff that come on board. Are they getting this information? Are they implementing it? Are we seeing progress with students? That's really our final step. We can certainly map this out as much as we want, but I think the data collection piece is going to be most intriguing for me.
Sure. All right, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you for putting it together, and Tracy, thank you for allowing them to, finding them the time to really collaborate to implement all of this. Seems like quite the project. Like going through it all.
It's enjoyable though, because it
That's
really
necessary.
is, it's organizing ourselves.
Right.
Wait, I feel like I have a question. So,
Bubble.
don't go.
My,
I'm thinking, should I say, no. So what, and maybe you said this, I don't know, I'm not connecting with this, so I apologize, Arnold, but what have you learned as you've gone along already? I mean, are we missing out on, are we able to meet our readers' needs? Is that what we're trying to accomplish with this? Are we, what's your goal? Can you remind me? I'm sorry.
Our goal is to take a look, and part of it, when there's obviously the MCAS data
Yeah.
that you look at,
Yep.
and we take a look at that and we get concerned about it. I do look at it with a 10,000-foot view sometimes, but this really looks at it at a more granular level.
Okay.
What are we doing for our early readers in
Right.
particular? How are we promoting them? And is it something specific or symptomatic of Grafton, or is it a larger concern that we have for all Massachusetts students? Are we an island in that regard? Are we doing the right things? So I think it really is the progress for all learners, not just small pockets of learners.
Okay, so the kids that might not qualify for special ed but might still need some additional reading support.
Well, I think that piece has already been modeled and is in full swing. As I mentioned before, Tracy and in particular Lisa Rice, working with the reading department, have modeled that for us. And looking at how they're working with their students and tracking their progress, we really want to take a look at that with the special education lens and the specific programs that we have in place for students.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
thanks, Arnold.
Thank you.
All right, so next up, so there's been, on the agenda tonight, we have the FY20 budget. I didn't know how the committee wanted to go forward with this. I was talking with Jay about this, but we're putting the agenda together. So there's been some recent developments, as you all are made aware, around some additional budget cuts, but we don't know exactly where or how much that is going to apply to us. So I didn't know if you wanted to hear an update tonight from this, or do we want to hold off to the next meeting until we have more information?
Do we know when we'll get those numbers?
No.
Okay.
Do you have an update?
I do not.
Okay, then.
I mean, I can go over, obviously, what we've talked about 8 million times. I presented, or put into the book, the January 10th memo that just
Yeah.
outlines it. So nothing's changed there, except on the town end, where I think it was about 350,000 they need to
Right, and we don't know that necessarily is gonna come from us.
correct. Yep. I'm hopeful it's next Tuesday. I think they meet again next Tuesday, but I have asked. I was pestering. So I don't know.
Okay, well then, I would wait till we had more information, I think.
I didn't know
Right?
it was the
Yeah.
10th.
Yeah,
that makes
okay,
sense.
seems, thank you.
Okay, great. Next up, we have a collaborative report in our packet today. I think you've all received the Essex Valley Annual Report.
So I handed out that ABC annual report in your book. You'll find the SWEC quarterly reports, and then not included in the paperwork, but just as an aside, I think I made you aware that with the Blackstone Valley Educational Consortium, I've been participating in a subcommittee that's looking at collaboration between all of the participating districts to look at how we can better, again, work together to build up manufacturing opportunities and STEM opportunities for students. So we've met 3 times now. It's slow going, but I think there's some potential there.
Do you envision at some point school committee involvement in that as well?
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
The Northbridge superintendent was kind of unofficially taking the lead. She's done a lot of work with some grants in that area, and she recently announced that she'll be leaving Northbridge. So we're kind of now reshuffling. We'll figure it out, but it's
Okay.
slowed us down a little bit. But I do expect a presentation and involvement this spring.
That's exciting. Thank you.
Jay, who else is on that group?
Um,
Bridge and
have to. I can give you a list. Kathy Stickney was the leader. Myself. Joe wasn't on it. We've got 2 principals on it, and Kevin Maines. So about 6 people.
Kevin Uxbridge. And Kevin's, Douglas.
All right, if there's anything else on that, moving on to school committee member reports, is that an? I'm
just-
sorry.
I never wanna
Yeah,
forget
I forgot,
Tracy.
I asked to move educational reports to the end of this, I'm sorry, Tracy.
Oh, you ready for me?
I am ready for you, I am so sorry.
No, no worries.
Thanks, Jay, for reminding me.
My pleasure. It's been a long day tomorrow.
It's that thought bubble comment by Doreen, I couldn't, I really have been thinking about that.
That might be his birthday present.
I think all of us. I think that's good for everybody.
I don't know what you're talking about.
It's not long.
I think it's a great thing. And the brag tags.
Open it with Google Slides.
I'm gonna, yeah, I'm gonna give them out.
I thought the brag tags, I thought what
Is there?
Jenna put together, I thought was pretty inventive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, it's good.
Oh, that's where it is, right
Bring it with me wherever I go.
Oh, it goes
here. Supermarket.
Yeah.
up.
Just sometimes you beat yourself up for like a really long time, and then you can just say, "Oh, I did okay, or I did better." You know what I mean?
Or maybe we could have really modest ones, like.
If it
you
loads.
don't completely say.
You missed your chance, Amy, you should have been here on time.
I am so excited for this, Tracy.
Are you?
Yeah.
There it
Yeah.
is. You guys excited too?
Yeah.
Good evening. I'm going to take just a few minutes to review the district's homework policy. As a reminder, I thought it would be good for us to discuss that really the major revision to the policy is that homework will now be designed according to 5 purposes for learning. Those purposes include reading, preparation, checking for understanding, practice, and extension. The committee worked with Jay and I to create a policy assessment timeline in the spring. That timeline is projected for you. And as you can see, we're making some progress. In the spring, I did meet with principals to discuss the PD needs that they may have for this year. I shared the policy with staff. Over the summer, we had talked at length, the DLT and I talked at length about me providing voluntary PD on the homework policy, but we felt that voluntary might not be the best way to go because we wanted to make sure that everyone was present and any concerns or questions could be fielded at that time. So what the principals asked me to do was to present at their faculty meetings at the start of the year. In particular, I was asked to go in and speak with Grafton High School and Grafton Middle School. And then the principals did a fantastic job of communicating the policy with parents via several venues, is my understanding. And teachers then went through the process of revising their policies. And then in January, I sent out a survey to staff. And that survey was short and sweet. It was relatively targeted to whether or not they favored or opposed the homework policy based on its current standing and their kind of very initial use of it, to say the least. I had 114 teachers respond. As you can see, 60% of them are in favor of the new policy. I saw certain themes emerge from their comments. I did ask them to explain or provide some reasoning regarding whether they would favor or opposed it, the policy, and many times I heard over and over again using this kind of the same language around it's more meaningful, it's more based on need, it's not really about time anymore, it's about value and impact on learning, which was a fantastic thing to read. In addition to that, I asked them, based on their initial use of the policy, would they recommend any changes? 52% at this point in time said they would not change the policy. But again, I did see 2 concerns emerge. The first one was that in some teachers' perception, there may not be as much consistency as they'd like to see across a grade level or a department. There was a concern with consistency. And in addition to that, a few teachers were concerned about not being able to assign homework over school vacations and the impact on learning that they may create. So I think that leads me to do a couple of things. The first thing I want to talk a little bit with the teacher leaders about is that whole idea of consistency. Are they seeing consistency when they're talking about it at their common planning times? What concerns are emerging? And if they are in fact not seeing that consistency, it would probably be a good idea for me to sit down with the principals and talk through what would be the next steps around that. In addition to that, I think, the concern about not being able to assign homework over vacations and any negative impact on student learning is something we might need to put on hold. I think they're making an assumption that will have a negative impact on learning, and I think we really need to have the policy in effect for some time before we can look at potentially changing that piece of the policy. Laura, I don't know if I can call on you.
No, and actually, but I also think that that's not correct. It's not that they can't assign it, it's just it can't be due the day they get back. So it's supposed to be due, I think, 2 days or 3 days back from the break. So
That's a
there
good
might be
point.
a misconception as well. It's just to give students an opportunity if they are going away for a vacation or spending some time with their family, that
Yes.
they'll have some time
Yes.
to.
I think it's a tradition, it may be something that teachers are very accustomed to doing. It's assigning a relatively large project over the 5-day span, thinking that that gives kids plenty of time to get it done. And then in thinking, well, now they don't have 5 days, they really only have the days before and maybe 3 days after, maybe where they're going with that. But again, I think we need to give the policy a little time
Yeah.
before we can make an assumption that it'll have a negative impact.
Right, yeah, and I think, so some of the thinking behind that too was just to give, sometimes it's out of a student's hands on what they are doing over a vacation. They're not always making the plans, parents are, so if they're getting whisked away
I
on a
agree.
family vacation, they may not be able to go to the library so that was some of the thinking behind it,
Yes, I agree.
sorry.
So that's where we are. My next steps, according to our timeline, is in the spring. I'm going to survey parents and students to get their feedback and to see if that's going to result in any further discussions in terms of the wording of the policy. And with that, I can take your questions. Wow, that was fast. No think time needed for
I was
this
looking at the
committee.
two students over there. I was waiting for their hands to go straight up in the air. Go ahead, Jen.
I was just gonna ask, do you have a breakdown with the teachers, like how many were middle school, high school, and how many were elementary? Or
I don't have a breakdown by grade level. I can guess based on commentary, but I don't have a breakdown by grade level.
Because I'm curious to see, like, maybe what the high school.
Yeah, I can do that in the next survey. I can do that. I can ask them to identify their grade level.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah, I would definitely be interested in hearing that too, and I'm glad you're surveying the students, because I felt like homework was a consistent theme that came up in our later start time survey that we saw from students, how, and it could be, I'm gonna take it all as like, okay, this is the gospel, but there still seemed to be a large concern about the amount of time it took them to finish their homework and to get it done, and how, getting home later would impact that. So I'd be curious if we did just a study focused on that, if it would be the same answers or people, how they were feeling.
I would imagine that's where the inconsistency is going to surface.
Yeah, well, especially, and we knew in high school that it's way different than elementary school, so
Yes.
which was one of our concerns, which is why we wanted to kind of take a look at it later. So I love that you did all this and coming to him.
Right.
Thank you. Anybody else? Was it Anya? Tyler, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Just over this February break, it was nice knowing that either we'd have more time. I had a couple assignments just for a couple AP classes that I know don't necessarily apply, but there were other things. Just knowing that I could go away and have that time was actually, as Ms. Hoffman was saying, it's nice to know that I have those extra days where I was able to get homework done last night or a couple days before, so that way over break I could go do stuff and it was a lot less stress and you didn't have to cram it in to whatever days you had available.
I had no homework over break, so it was pretty good for me.
Before you sit down, if the committee's okay, I'm sorry, go ahead,
Just
Melissa.
one
Yes.
quick question. Did you ask any questions about how teachers are, I don't even know quite how to ask this. In the past, I've noticed that there have been teachers who would say to students, you shouldn't spend more than 40 minutes. But they would still assume that that the students would be responsible for everything that was in that homework. So nobody would quit at 40 minutes. So how, to me, that's one of those tougher ones. It's easy to say, this is, I'm giving you this for practice, so it meets one of the goals, and you shouldn't spend more than 40 minutes. But then how do you ensure that
They're not.
that's a reasonable?
The flip side of that too is for kids, because it's happening right now with my child, is that if I feel that she knows all the information, but she'll still do the 45 minutes regardless.
Yes.
Even though I think she understands it.
Right.
Because it's in her head
That you must.
Right.
Right. And then it's wasted time.
Yeah. So I did not specifically ask a question around that, but
That's kind of a
I do
tough
think it's
one.
something that I probably can surface through conversations. Because I
Yeah.
think there's so many nuances to this, that once you start
Exactly.
peeling the onion back of how we're
Oh,
going
yeah.
to design homework and ask kids to respond to homework, I think we're going to end up surfacing a lot of things that we weren't aware of and really should talk through.
Yeah, yeah. As I was asking it, I was realizing that was an impossible survey question. It's more a feel,
Yes.
I guess. Yeah.
And something to think about when you do a follow-up survey with the students. One thing, like in the process that we're working through in my district, we're finding feedback is different based off of the courses a lot too at the high school level. So, sorry, I'll come closer. So at the, in say the math department, there weren't changes that were made, as opposed to another department, they made a change. And so if you can sometimes get down to those layers and get a little bit more specific, then you can go in beyond like the conversations that you'll have with the people, then you can go in and start to address maybe departmental practices that might need to be adapted, which will naturally come up. But that's what we found so far and that we're learning we need to address.
Yep.
So, thanks for all your hard work.
Great. Thank you.
Before you go, real quick, if the committee's okay with this, there's a member of the public that has a homework policy question. Would anyone object if she came up and asked the question? Come on up, Amy.
Hi, everybody. I'm Amy Marf. Those of you who don't know me, I have a child who's a freshman at the high school. One of the things that I was curious about is if we can look at before and after the breaks. There seemed to be this past time a pile up right before the break, especially at the honors level. Not so much the AP, but the honors level. I know a number of students who were pulling one or more all-nighters that week, simply because the teachers assigned stuff to get it done right before the break. And then they came back and it was like nothing to do. So I wonder if that's something that somehow can be surveyed to give the students an opportunity to pull that out. Because I've heard the complaint, but I'd like it to come out in the survey data.
So, Amy, if I understand what you're saying, is that because teachers can no longer assign a major project over those 5 days, they're trying to say, okay, we'll just get it done. Everybody's going to get it done
Plus tests.
right
that
before the
same
break.
week, yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
That's good for me to know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, thanks, Tracy, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Now we can go on the school committee member reports. Does anyone have anything they want to present?
I do. I don't really have anything to present, but it will be coming over in the future week or so. Jay, Dan, and I met with AA Transportation to talk through busing, and I will say it was one of the most informative meetings I have been to as a school committee member. It is a giant puzzle, and every bus adds a minute, every stop adds a minute, every route. It's not just a matter of, hey, we're misusing our buses, we need to fill them up. It's very complicated, it's not easy. And I applaud the people at AA and Dan and Jay for all of the work that they do constantly, especially Dan is on the front lines with those, with the bus and the bus complaints. And I'll tell you, as a parent, I had a completely different view walking out of there. I was very grateful to get to sit there. So Jay and I haven't started yet, but we will kind of do a presentation of our findings or, something of what we learned. But it wasn't great news for me. I mean, it was a lot more complicated than even I thought, and expensive.
I'm not surprised.
I think that's probably good, and so and when we're trying to relay that message to the Late Start Time Committee. Like, I spoke to Dan separately, and learn more and just only talking to him, not even going to AA
Yeah.
or whatever you call it.
It is, it's AA, yeah, yeah.
But it is very complicated, but it's something that I think that if that's the information that we need to get out to the committee and to the town so that people understand really what's going on. So, thanks for going though.
Yeah, no, I was glad to have the opportunity to go. I know that wasn't a terrific update, but I just wanted to let you all know that we went, and it was very informative.
Anybody else?
Just an update for Friday. I know Mr. Pignataro talked about before, we have Representative McGovern coming into the high school, I believe, last period Friday. So right now there's an announcement going on in every social studies class, and then students will sign up if they have questions they want to ask with whatever question they want to come, and we'll be meeting in the LGI Friday, this coming Friday from 1 to 2 with Representative McGovern.
Great.
And then we're working on looking at possible other events we can do. We've talked with Mr. Meridian and Senator Moore, as well as a couple other representatives from around the state, and we're looking to talk with the governor's office as well to see if we can keep that going, as well as going up to New Hampshire come primary season to where they have the open ballot to go meet at the conventions. So we're working with that, myself and then 2 other students at the high school.
Great.
Sure, if you need a school committee member. Peter would be happy to go. I would love to go.
I'd love to go. That'd be fun. That'd be great.
Just an update on later start time committee had met this past month, and just want to thank the members of the committee. They went through all of their survey data, and so there was analysis of that, and also an outcome of the meeting was to finalize a frequently asked question document, which is up on the website and can be found. So we just want to direct people if they have questions. There are many questions and answers at the current time that are up there, and we'll continue to update that as we get more information on busing and other areas related to it. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for all the work that you've done on that committee, Maureen.
My pleasure.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I submitted the town report, but I'll maybe present that next meeting, and I'll take a synopsis of parts of it. Yes.
Thanks for doing that.
That's what I did over the break.
Thanks.
The homework wasn't supposed to be due right after break, though.
I know.
Yeah.
I was actually due before break.
Pete, and you were supposed to have it on a trifold. Glass houses.
No, we're not
No,
talking
I'm not
about
letting
me.
that,
It's
I'm
not
not
about
letting
me.
that go,
It's not
though.
about
Following the
me.
leadership
No,
of
it's not about, it's
prior.
not about me.
I mean, you got it in February. That's amazing.
I think I got it in like
May.
April.
Well, because Debney
Yeah, I'm only kidding. Yeah.
brought it up.
Thank you, Jen, very much for doing that.
Thank you, Debney.
CIPC met for the first time this year, for this fiscal year, last week. Our next meeting is on Monday, the 11th of March. We have a couple of committee, some department heads to come in just to present some of the capital plan. Committee had some questions that we didn't have any answers on. Actually, with the exception of you guys, but I'm just lumping you in there. And, you know, misery likes company, so, you know, come on and have fun with us on a Monday evening.
Our pleasure.
Last but not least, one of the things I wanted to give the committee an update on is that there's been some developments with our Grafton Cable Studio. And I think in one of the Friday memos, we mentioned about the possibility of going live with our meetings. And the reason why we haven't been able to do that was up until, I would say, within the past year, they just didn't have the right technology implemented at that time in order to do 2 simultaneous meetings on a Tuesday. As you know, we sometimes meet at the same time as the Board of Selectmen, and they usually just, you know, would be the ones that would get the preference on going live, and then we would be taped and rebroadcast on the educational channel. Through the hard work of our cable studio, they have tested and validated that they can now go live on both channels, which is great. We've never been able to do that before. And if the committee would like to do so at our next meeting, we could go possibly live on the education channel. So it's completely up to you guys. So I don't know how you guys feel about that.
I say if it increases awareness and transparency, I'm all
Sure.
for it. Is there a bleep button just in case? Just kidding.
I found it.
Found it. No.
I think it says Laura on the button.
Yeah. I always had this weird thought that we didn't go live just because we often had children come and present, and if there was anything we ever needed to do. But I
I think that was a myth I completely made up in my mind.
It's funny, I asked that question, and our government meetings are unedited.
Yeah.
So that's part of that whole transparency part. So
Right.
if we do have some people who may come in here and, you know, with the pitchforks and torches, which they have that right to do, then that gets broadcast live, and or if it's taped, it gets rebroadcast as is unedited.
Anyway, yeah, so,
Yep.
I mean, I'm all for it. I think it's, people seem to want it, our 20 fans, so maybe we'll get up to 30, and people can watch it all.
Okay.
From the comfort of their homes, they can watch.
Instead
They
of
can
coming
stream
here.
it
They come
online,
right
too.
over,
Those
rush
people-
over when they want.
That's right.
It's great.
Okay, so I'll let,
Not anticipating.
actually, I don't have to, I think you just heard us, that we're gonna go live at the next meeting, and we'll notify, thank you very much, Bob and the staff at Grafton
Yeah,
Community
thank you.
Television for all of that hard work. We appreciate it. I don't have, I know we missed the meeting, so I'm just trying to make sure I don't have anything else I need to.
Sustainable question.
Where's that?
I was gonna bring that up under correspondence,
all right.
from Mr. Prisby, from the Board of Selectmen.
Okay.
Do we have a district update, Jay?
Just a few quick things. Our good friends, the G Squad robotics team, you may have seen, they're continuing their world domination. They are now triple qualified for the regionals, and as you know, they also are headed off to Oklahoma sometime in the early spring for, I can't remember if that's nationals or worlds, but anyhow, they're just doing
That's awesome.
phenomenally well. We had 10 students participate under the tutelage of Mrs. Bailey. They participated in the Brain Bee competition at UMass Medical School, beginning of a couple weeks back. We had 3 students make the final 10, Emma Kimball, Madison Durazio, and Anya Sood. And Emma Kimball earned 3rd place, which was absolutely great. So thank you to the team for participating and Mrs. Bailey for her efforts in putting the activity together. And then last but not least, a bunch of students at the high school put together the Smash Cancer fundraiser, where they're going to play. Are you guys in that tournament tomorrow?
I play all the time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You should come tomorrow.
I lied.
Is it
and
tomorrow?
It's
tomorrow afternoon. I'm in it.
Are
with
you?
Stein
Do you
Ballack. I
play?
told
Oh.
Stein that I did play and that I
Yeah.
was really good, but I've never played.
Oh, you should.
So I'm glad we're not live, because he won't know till well, he'll know
He'll
tomorrow.
know. He's gonna know.
But yeah,
Oh, you
anyhow,
should- I
I,
wish
I
I-
think it's great. Really creative, fun thing after school tomorrow. So I'm sure I'll give you a report.
Please
next
share that
Saturday.
with us. I'm
It's
interested.
Super Smash Brothers. So it's this Nintendo game, and you fight one another with like all the Nintendo characters. So you have like a Pikachu or a Mario, and I'll give a shout out to my son. But he would rock it. I got to get him over to the high school tomorrow.
Yeah, he can fill in for me.
He should fill in for you.
By proxy.
It's so good, and everybody can bring their Switch. I love it. It's so nice to see video games being considered a sport.
Oh, I don't know. They're raising money,
You
which
would
is
love
great.
it.
I'm not sure. They're calling it an athletic event.
It is,
But,
yes.
okay.
That is like a thing in
I'll
colleges
let you know. I'm sorry I
nowadays.
brought
And
it
high
up.
schools.
Yeah, in high schools,
Yeah.
esports.
Yeah,
They
no,
bring it in.
esports,
Yeah, I know,
yeah.
I get MIA
I'm
notifications.
sorry.
Sports, yeah.
I'm so sorry, but
Oh,
I'm
no,
s-
that was
I'm
it.
so
I think it's
excited
great.
about that.
I love that kids put it together.
Connor can tell you all about
Good
it.
luck.
Thank you.
Great, good luck, thank you very much. All right, so next up we have
They
future
do it
agenda
some
planning.
schools, but not ours.
With the exception of a couple things, I just wanted to ask the committee, tonight we've had a parent that asked us to bring back up policy JEB-1, and in addition, thank you very much for providing the comprehensive information, thank you. But wanted to ask the committee, again, what is the wish? Do we want to bring this policy forward to subcommittee? Do we want to take this up, or do we want to pass over on this year?
Peter, would like to have some time to read this. It's a lot of information, and I think the fact that there's 100 people signing it means that we ought to give it at least the read.
Okay.
I haven't been able to look through this since we got it.
I have one question for Maureen. Were you there when Mendon Upton put this into place, or?
No,
I'll
it's been
tell
there,
her-
it's been there a long time.
So I was wondering what was the thought behind it, and how'd you go about it, and then what, that's more, I think, that's.
Yeah, no, I think from my understanding, it's been there a long time. And I talked to one principal, and over like her 25 or so years being in the district, there hadn't been one student who had made it through and entered with that exception. And I talked to the other principal, and of all the years she's been there, which Lester's been one. So that's the facts that I got on it, but I wasn't able to see the year that it came into effect, but I think it's been there a long time. So that's what I found out on that one.
So, I'm sorry, Andrew, this is our, right now, just let us kind of go through our process in 1 second, please. Thank you. If you give us 1 minute. So is there any other input from the committee that, how it wants to proceed?
I'm okay with going through with what Melissa's saying and just taking time to actually read through all of it, because it's a lot of material that they presented. And then maybe the next meeting.
I mean, we could take it back into subcommittee, which would be the process, bring it back to the policies. I mean, we did a lot of this work already, but, I don't want to discount, great work and advocacy, and obviously a lot of passion, so we can certainly, take it again.
Okay.
I don't know what the outcome's gonna be, but,
All right.
happy to.
So at this
How you
point,
feel.
I think it makes sense to have us be able to look through the information that was collected. I think we don't have the time to look at it now, and certainly it can be something that as through the process through policy
We would bring it for our
subcommittee.
first reading, we
Yeah.
would discuss
Can be
it, I mean,
looked
we
at.
would have a whole process that we would do.
Yep.
I know it takes time and that's frustrating, but we would do that for any other policy. And I do think, policy J, I said, it has been on my personal bucket list for a while to go through. We are delayed. The last time it was looked at was 2013, which is a long time. So it would have come up to look at.
is there a time frame that if the policy policy subcommittee will take this up again, is there a time frame that you guys need, that you want to report back? It's not taking you
I
home.
knew he was gonna salute.
Sorry, it's,
I knew that
my
was
son
coming.
just saluted at the Boy Scout.
I missed that.
Yeah, it was good. Sorry.
All right, so my question was, how much time frame would you guys want? Did you want to bring it up to the next meeting? Did you want more time?
Well, we don't have our meeting scheduled yet. We have an email trying to figure out what dates are to schedule, so hopefully we'll be able to meet next week.
Okay.
But I can't tell you that right now because we haven't looked at schedules yet,
All
so.
right.
And can we, for now, say that it'll come back after, at a future, put it on like a future, but I wouldn't want to commit to it being at that next meeting because we may not be able to be
Sometimes we
ready
do
for
more
that.
research, we do,
I'm just asking how much time you guys want.
we don't know.
Okay. All
We'll
right.
try it, we're gonna try, we're not
Yeah.
gonna drag it out for the purposes of dragging it out, but.
No, we have 2 meetings scheduled in March, so, the 12th and the 26th. The 26th is a month away, and I didn't know if maybe that is enough. I just don't know how much time you guys would need, but what I'm hearing is you don't know. So at this point in time, I'll put it tentatively on the 26th, just tentatively
That's fine.
on the agenda, with your input, obviously. And
Yep,
then
sure,
if
that works.
you need another couple of weeks, then
Yeah,
you're
I
looking
mean,
at the April 9th.
Yeah, I almost feel like that's very generous, and we're probably not gonna need all that time, and we'll just make sure we keep everybody updated,
Okay.
public updated on what.
Okay. All right, so, Andrew, Christie, you heard it tonight. We will take the policy back up under consideration in the subcommittee. I want to thank you to come in. Did you have one last comment you want to make to us?
I just wanted to make one comment.
Could you come up to the microphone? I'm so sorry, Christie. That's just so people at home can see you and hear you on the microphone.
Oh, wouldn't want to see and hear me, Peter.
I do.
I just wanted to bring up to the subcommittee that early entrance to kindergarten is a great option because it's inexpensive and it provides the least amount of hiccup in a child's friendships that they make, curriculum that they receive, and it's a good option. And that a year's work should provide a year's progress for children, and a child that starts out kindergarten already knowing what kindergarten will be teaching does not gain that year's progress for his year's work. So I just want you to be aware of that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks for waiting. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much for waiting. I offered to take them out of order, but they said no, they wanted to.
It was a lot of good things. You got to hear from South Grafton Elementary School, which directly affects, with the kindergarten curriculum, and it's a good meeting.
So I'll work with Jay on that. In addition to that, did you have some time in the future agenda for a presentation on AA busing?
I don't know if we need a presentation. It might be a memo.
Okay.
I don't want to commit us to,
That's fine.
if it's really good and we can do animation or puzzle pieces or costumes.
Memo's good. On the 26th, if the committee's up for it, I was going to have Mr. Pignataro come and speak to, probably with some students and staff, speak to the G term.
Yes. Thank you. I know, I was just thinking that.
You'll see on the 26th.
Yeah.
Give me that look.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I've been reading all about it. I'm so excited
Yeah, it should
about
be
that.
good.
No, I'm fine. So
Sorry. I'm
20.
kidding. It's not even 9.
Okay. All right, that's it. Okay, so we're all set. Anything else on future agenda planning? Tyler, Anya, anything? No? Okay, thank you very much. All right, moving on to approval of meeting minutes.
All right, Peter.
Yes.
I would like to make a motion to approve January 22nd, 2019 minutes as presented.
Second?
We have a motion made in second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Declare the motion passed.
I abstain.
Oh, and one abstention. Thank you. All right,
Peter?
yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the January 30th, 2019 tri-board meeting minutes as presented.
Motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made, second, any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Sorry, Liz.
It's getting
I lost my rhythm there. I caught you off guard. All right, are we all set on the meeting minutes?
Thank you.
Thank
you,
you.
Debbie.
Thanks, Dabney, very much. All right, next up, we have financial warrant number 31 in our school committee book.
Peter?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve warrant number 31 dated January 30th, 2019 for a total of $132,240.15.
Second?
I have a motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Just bear with me here to make sure I don't have to abstain on this one. All those in favor? Okay, the motion carried unanimous. Thank you. And warrant number 33, which is in our handbook folder. Sorry, that was presented tonight.
Peter?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve warrant number 35 dated February 28th. What?
Yes.
Oh, I'm on 35.
There are 3 warrants.
I'm looking at 33. I'm sorry. Which one you're on,
One in the
35?
book, 2 in the folder.
We can do 35 first. You can do that fine.
Where's the one?
It's not gonna throw your balances off if we take them out of order, is it?
Should I do 30? Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. I pulled that one first.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I didn't complete the motion, right?
No, you did
So,
not.
We'll do,
I declare the
Yeah.
motion out of order anyway, so go ahead.
all right, I'm gonna take warrant number 33 dated February 14th, 2019 for a total of $244,540.26.
Second?
Motion made, second, any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Okay, the motion carried unanimous. Have a good night. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Have fun tomorrow at the
Yeah.
fundraiser.
So great.
Okay, next up, number 35.
Warrant number, I'd like to make a motion to approve warrant number 35 dated February 2018, oh my God. February 28th, 2019.
Second.
For $552,831.25.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second?
Motion made, second, any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Okay, the motion carried unanimously. Thank you very much.
God.
Okay, we don't have any policy information tonight. Next up, we have some correspondence. So all of you received a draft copy, if you recall from the tri-board meeting. The selectmen had decided to come up with a charge for the Grafton Sustainable Commission and the charge of the Grafton Board of Selectmen. So tonight, I didn't know if you had any feedback that we can give back to the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah.
Yes, Laura.
Peter, thank you. Thank you for this, and thanks to Mr. Frisbee for the first draft on this. I have a few concerns about this. First is in the second paragraph, where it says the GSC is, which would be the Grafton Sustainability Commission, is charged with assisting and planning for additional tactics and strategies to improve the town's operational efficiency and effectiveness in future fiscal years, including the functions of the executive and school committee branches of Grafton's government. It's my understanding that our function kind of is directed by DESI and can't be changed by this committee. I think it's too broad and too general. We have 3 functions as a school committee, which is to review policy, budget, and our superintendent. And I don't think a committee made up of citizens and members of the 3 boards can come and change our function. That word really concerns me. I think it's too broad and open. I don't really think the goal of this committee is well-defined. So you're going to do research, benchmarking, income analysis, and spending analysis to ultimately determine and make recommendations upon the sustainability of the services that Grafton residents rely upon. So to me, what does that mean? They come in here and they, obviously, we know what's sustainable a little bit with our budget, right? So, okay, you have this amount of staff, we've given them this amount of raises, you have this budget, it's not sustainable. I think that's, me with my bachelor's can figure that out. But I have concerns that they come back and say, you have to implement fees to make up for this kind of budget. I think there's some sort of, when you look at a school budget and you just look at it financially, it takes away from the overarching value of what a budget does. I think it comes up all the time for me with the fees, for instance. People, why don't you just X, Y, Z, charge for sports? And we've had this conversation several times, and I'm sure we're gonna have to have it again. And that's okay to have the discussion, but I don't wanna be told by another committee that maybe doesn't have kids' best interests at heart. Like, I feel like our committee, we're designed for student achievement. And the reason why the last time we talked about it, that we didn't wanna implement fees was partly because we considered athletics as a part of our overall education, and if we were going to be able to have to deny certain kids the privilege of being in athletics because of funding, that overall, doesn't affect their outcome as a student. So when you look at a budget just from that financial eye, which is great, that's why we have a FinCom and that's what they do, but when you don't bring in the heart or the thought behind it, it really makes me nervous. And not understanding what this charge is and having what happened in that TRICOM meeting, is that something that's going to happen? Are we going to, who's ever our representative, our 2 representatives, are they then going to have to rehash years of school committee decisions to justify every decision that we've made? Is that part of it? And I agree with this. I understand this is something we have to do to try to get to the override, which I am in favor for and that we need. So I'll do what it takes to try to get the funding that our district deserves. But I want to make sure we're playing, that we have a say in what the goals are and what the rules are for this. Like, I'll play ball, but I want to make sure I understand the rules.
Okay.
I'm like, I don't know, but I think the word function kind of threw me off, and I might be misinterpreting it too, and we have a clear function. I'm done now. Anybody else?
Does anyone else have anything they would like to add?
Well, she stole my thunder on the function. Nice job. Good.
But it just makes me validates.
But yeah, that was one area that I had a concern of, kind of the purview of the charge, and I think in theory there's some good things. I'd love to have a nice collaborative working group.
Yeah.
I guess a concern I've thought about is just kind of going beyond that, planning for the future and being an advisory group. And I don't want to put through those in positions like Jay and Dan and Tim, put them through too much extra work to get the committee this, get this info. I know that's a part, but I feel like when we had the previous kind of working group on the 5-year sustainability, you know, that it was just constantly, and then where did that end up? Nowhere. Or we know the tri-committee is it's good, but it could be better. And so I'm concerned about some of the inner workings that have gone on, and I'm concerned about it being a little overburdensome for those in positions like Jay or Tim and Dan and et cetera. So I'm just expressing that concern because of the charge, and I think it really needs to be defined a little bit better. And I'm definitely concerned, I agree with Laura, on the function piece.
Yeah, I don't think you
those are
could
the
just
things I
say you're
thought
gonna have
about.
a committee to change it. That sounds like a bylaws kind of
You know?
thing to me. Yeah,
So-
it's just, it's a little bit overreaching. Having an advisory committee is not a bad idea, purely advisory, but I completely agree with you that it's going to look at the function. Maybe it's just the way it's written.
Yeah, yeah.
Has to be clear that this is advisory, that this is not a policy forming committee, et cetera. So I think that needs more,
Yeah.
would be what
And I appreciate the work that's gone into this already and the thought behind it. And I do want to stress that. And we had thought of, or come up also of maybe seeing if we can get an outside consultant or moderator. I was wondering, thinking maybe MASC might have somebody they could loan out. I mean, we could be short money, but I think we've proven left to our own devices as we're not quite ready to work together as a TRICOM right now. And I'd love to make it better and to work on it. But it would also be nice for somebody that doesn't have skin in the game to kind of be able to direct and moderate for us. And I don't know if there's resources for that, but it might be worth it, or somebody who's a professional at it. You know, we could wind up saving money by spending a little bit of money. It might be helpful too, you know, just to have somebody kind of.
You know, so I think what I'm hearing is that there's some concerns about the wording and about set forth with a group to make policy on behalf of versus make recommendation and advise of, right? So I think I totally agree with you that I think the first part here, you know, it is clearly written, and I know if we're not careful and we say, yeah, this looks good, then we're gonna be adhered to that. I think that another part was that, you know, if you look at the last couple of tri-board committee meetings, you know, a lot of people told me that they weren't encouraged that, you know, there's a working collaborative solution. No one was coming up with a plan. You know, with the exception of Mr. Prisby saying, you know, in order to get to a plan, maybe we should consider some of these things that we're seeing here. And I think from a first draft standpoint, I think it touches upon, I think, a lot of things that this district has done over the past 7 years, I know, extensively, where we've looked at cost-saving measures, efficiencies. We looked at changing the way we operate on a continuous basis. Out of all the town departments, we're the only one that's under a microscope, not only from the state, but from our own constituency. And God knows that if we do one little thing wrong or we make a change in a policy, that, you know, we get, you know, tons of feedback, whether it be positive or negative. I mean, we'll take the later start times thing. You know, there's still a lot of people out there that have some of that information, but they don't have all of it. So when you look at how they are making decisions, it gets very clouded. I'm kind of going on a tangent there, but coming back to what I think we should do is probably take our concerns, you know, maybe write them up and present that to the board and just tell them this is how we feel. I do have a concern about the size of the committee. I think 13 people.
Well, that's one way to ensure that nothing happens.
I think you just got quoted.
Or the subject of a blog, one or the other. But I think that you're right. You know, the 13 people is daunting. I mean, just to have a quorum, you would need, is it 7 people there at any given time? More importantly, I'm also concerned about 2 school committee members. I mean, you know, 2 Board of Selectmen and 2 Finance Committee members. I mean, if you're really kind of looking for outside set of eyes, you should draw more people from the public, I think, that may have an interest in this. And that's something that I may personally make a recommendation to Mr. Prisby about maybe changing the number and the makeup of the committee. Maybe 1 school committee member ought to be enough, because I do agree with you, Maureen, about the amount of time that our staff would have to be, you know, because, being at the beck and call of this committee, and we've done a lot of this work already. If people have paid attention and look at our budgets and see how we've done things over even the past 5 years, I mean, we do business much differently than what we did just a few years ago.
Well, Peter, I don't know if I,
Yeah, no,
I don't know if
you're
I
gonna say
actually
what I'm
agree with
saying,
that.
yeah.
But, because I think about diversity of thought, I think about our later start time committee has a lot of, it's a large group of people, and we've been able to conduct good work because it was moderated well, it's been run, thoughtfully. Same when we did our strategic planning, we had a lot of people on that committee. So I think if it's the right people, and the charge is clear, and we have somebody directing it, I think that's okay. I'm concerned about the work, but I think then we need to change next year's gonna be a hard year, no matter what. We might have to lessen other things that we do. Is this more important than, all the other good work we do? We're gonna have to make some suggestions, and if this is the only way we're gonna be able to get the funding we need for our schools, then maybe that's something I would think about. Then, okay, maybe policy J doesn't get looked at for another year. I mean, we're just gonna have to trade some things off, and our expectations of Jay, or, that's gonna have to be part of his goals, and then he'll have to do less, because we're very tightly, so we'll have to decide if this is important enough, if the end result, and right now, I don't understand what the end result is. It's up for people to come in and say, implement parking, implement athletic fees, because that's the only idea I keep hearing from people, when I feel like we have been doing great work.
Yeah, and the other thing I hear too that I think is a detriment is, wage freezes and so on and so forth. And those are not good, sound strategies for sustainability. Those are regressive in nature, correct? And if these things are something that I think that the governing board of that department should be more directly and intimately involved with, it can make a recommendation. But I think, we as a board need to weigh, what are the outcomes to students, and does that fall in line with what we're charged to do?
Right.
There is one shining thing about this charge that I will point out, and that is how the 6 members, if they go forward with 2 school committee members, 2 finance committee members, and 2 board of selectmen, is that the 6 members shall constitute the execute committee and are powered by, to appoint a majority vote, 7 additional members. So that working group would actually be really empowered to, make sure that board is diversified enough to meet that. So versus each, like the board of selectmen appointing all of the members,
Right.
once these are identified, I think that's a very interesting mechanism. I don't think we've ever done that before. And so that is something that is encouraging with the way, how that appointment piece works.
I do like that, because I want us to be able to be part of having a say, especially if, looking at sustainability, for our school system as part of it, that we'd be able to have input. So I do like how that's set up.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
It's just learning, it's just, it's like when you come in and somebody comes into your company and they cut half the staff, because that's gonna increase the bottom line, but they don't think about this year, or what that does to your employees, what that does to your customers, what that does to your products. You can't look at it doesn't make sense. So I think it's a great start, and I understand, and I know some other towns have had some success with that. Those are other towns that are a lot wealthier too, and I'm guessing they brought in some outside consultants to help lead the charge. So I think I said my piece too much. I should have thought some of it, I guess, but I said it.
Okay.
Thank you, Peter.
You're welcome. Anybody else? So with the permission, I'll draft up just our concerns in a summary form and send that off to Mr. Prisby.
Do you mind circulating just to us, just because a lot came out, and if we could look at what you write before you send? Not that I don't trust you.
I don't mind at all.
Thank
That's-
you.
That's fine.
Thanks.
All right.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay.
I can watch the tape.
I was just gonna send a link saying, if you watch the tape from this moment on and through this moment, that's what was gonna be my memo.
That's perfect.
That's very one sentence.
Yes.
Here's the link. But I will send that off for you guys for review.
Thank
Um,
you, Pete.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
All right. Does anyone else have any correspondence, besides the correspondence from Chrissy and Andrew, obviously, about tonight, but we don't need to cover that. We talked about that tonight, so. All right, I do have, we are going into executive session tonight, so before we adjourn, I will need a motion to go into executive session.
Peter,
Yes.
I move that we go into executive session reasons under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with respect to collective bargaining with the custodial and support staff units.
Second?
I have a motion made and seconded. We will go into roll call.